Welcome, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. Get comfortable, get the AirPods in. Hope they're charged up and ready. We have just an amazing couple hours set aside for you. Thanks so much for being here. This is so exciting. I'm gonna turn off the slides and just try my best to talk to you as a human being. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Jeremiah Aha. I have the privilege of serving here on the Wellness Together team as Director of Partnerships, and we're based, a nonprofit organization based here in Sacramento, California. Where are you from? Throw it in the chat. You know the deal. Put it there in the chat. Where are you tuning in from? Just want to see who's in attendance this afternoon or this evening, or even for our folks across the pond, could be a morning. We got LA, Franklin, Tennessee, Oregon, some more Tennessee. Let's see, Sacktown in the house. Shout out to 916 Sacramento. From Chile, welcome, welcome. So glad that you are here. From Rockland, good to see you there. Shout out to Marty, that's what I'm gonna say. So glad you're here. We have Binghamton, New York. We got the Central Coast, 805, shout out. Providence, Rhode Island. Awesome, thanks so much for being here. We're so excited. We got a Connecticut in the house, some more Oregon, SoCal. Good to see you. San Antonio, Texas. Shout out to the 512. Thanks for being here. So get comfy. We have people from all over the world, it looks like, and we're so pleased to have you here. We're so glad to have Dr. Marc Brackett back with us. Just a few announcements before we jump in, and I promise we'll get in to hang with Dr. Brackett really quickly. Just want to share a couple of things to make sure that your experience here today at the Wellness Together Spring Webinar event is absolutely excellent. So again, my name is Jeremiah Aha. I serve as Director of Partnerships here at Wellness Together. We're a nonprofit organization based in Sacramento, California. We serve school districts throughout California and beyond, also in New York City, and looking to connect with other states as well across the U.S. To provide on-site mental health services to students and families without any Medicaid, Medi-Cal, or any insurance requirements, right there where students are at. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to visit wellnesstogether.org, or you can just snap that QR code. You can find out some more information, all right? So thanks again, and welcome from the Wellness Together team. If you found yourself here, a colleague said, hey, come to this webinar, this is what you've stepped into. This is going to be a 2-hour plus on emotional literacy, on regulating emotions, understanding them for ourselves and for the students that we serve and whatever community this finds you in. So honored to have Dr. Marc Brackett, and maybe you are familiar with his book, Permission to Feel. Highly, highly, highly recommend it, and he'll be digging into that and going a bit deeper. This is actually our second time having Dr. Brackett with us, back by popular demand. He's one of our most popular speakers from the Student Mental Wellness Conference this last September. It was virtual, and we had a chance to host him for just a keynote session. And off the cuff, he said, you know, it's going to take a whole 6 hours to unpack. And so reached out to his team and said, hey, we want to take him up on that. How about 3 hours though? And so we have him here. Check out that link. Alex, shout out to Alex. She's going to be in the chat there. And there's a link there to purchase the books if you want to get some for you and your team. And speaking of the conference, I want to invite you right now, if you haven't heard, consider this your very own personal invitation to the 6th Annual Student Mental Wellness Conference, live and virtual. We're back, baby. Since 2019, we've been virtual, and this year we're going to be in sunny San Diego, California, September 14th and 15th. Honored and proud to have our sponsor, our partner in this work, the California Department of Education. They've been our partner since the very beginning, so shout out to CDE and all the great work that's happening over there. And if you'd like to learn more, you can hit up that link that's in the chat or snap that QR code there. And registration is live, and we have some keynote announcements happening soon, so watch your inbox. Lastly, here's this. Want to let you know, next Wednesday, so same time, 2:30 Pacific time, we're going to have another spring webinar. We are so glad to have Sydney Jensen with us. You may be familiar with her. Her TED Talk has been viewed over 2.7 million times on educator wellness educator mental health. So if you are having conversations there at your district office or with your site team on how we can really support, maybe even supplement some of the EAP programs that are there, how to approach kind of a school-based, site-wide wellness for your staff, you're definitely going to want to be a part of it. Click on that QR code to register. Registration's live. Another free event brought to you by our Educator Wellness Division of Wellness Together, and that is hearyou.org. Hearyou.org actually was launched right before the world shut down in March of 2020, specializing in educator wellness. And then because of our clinical licenses, we can serve people throughout the state of California as well as New York and beyond. So feel free to check that out, hearyou.org. And here we go. We're on the downhill, getting into some details for our time here with Dr. Marc Brackett. If you would like to submit a question, you can put in that URL right there, and we'd be glad to just have your question stored for us. We're going to have a chance at the very end to ask him live, as he's been known as being very engaged and interactive with attendees. Go ahead and snap that QR code or hit up the link wellnesstogether.info/liveqa, and we can get those questions and have a chance for yours to be answered. All right. Lastly, I promise, lastly is this. We want to know how beneficial or not beneficial this was for your busy schedule. Recognize that for many of you, this is going past kind of your regular day there at the school site, maybe even at the district office if you're on the East Coast or somewhere. We want to know how this was for you. If you submit a feedback form, your name is going to be entered for a chance to win either a free virtual pass to this year's Student Mental Wellness Conference or a copy of just a vital book for you and your team, Dr. Brackett's Permission to Feel. We're going to give away 2 of each for every one of you that fill out that feedback form. Go ahead and snap the QR code. You know the drill, wellnesstogether.info/webinar feedback for a chance to win those prizes here at the very end. All right, I think we're settled. I think we're in. No shame if you arrived late. Thanks so much for being here. And I'll just introduce Dr. Brackett real quick. I know that it wouldn't be that helpful to read a very long bio, so I'll just tell you this. Just know, I've mentioned before, author of Permission to Feel. He's the founding director for the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence, and he's a professor there at the Child Study Center for the Yale School of Medicine at Yale University. I think we're at 125 plus scholarly articles that have been published, and that is growing most definitely. He's won awards for emotional literacy research and social and emotional learning. He is a distinguished scientist on the National Commission on Social, Emotional, and Academic Development, and he also serves on the board of directors for CASEL, and of course, as we know, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Dr. Brackett, that was even like a reduced version. I feel like that was a bit long-winded, so sorry. We're so glad to have you with us again.
Thank you so much, Jeremiah. And I just want to make sure you can see me and hear me okay. Awesome. And if you're looking to leave your position and come run my organization with your enthusiasm, I'm certain that we will be scaling even faster than we are.
Glad to be here with you. That's what the excitement's all about. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the intro.
Yeah.
And hi, everybody. Thank you for showing up. I know it is, I'm on the East Coast right now. I'm actually in New York City. I was here for Mental Health Awareness Month doing some presentations, and it's 5:40 p.m. my time. Some of you I see on the East Coast. So if you're here on the East Coast, thank you for staying up late, meaning working overtime. And for those of you on the West Coast, thank you for showing up in the afternoon. And on that note, let me get everyone to just kind of settle for a minute. Because I don't know about you, but I've had a long day and I want to be as present as possible for all of you tonight or this afternoon. Give me a quick yes in the chat if your brain, like mine, is a little bit all over the place. I'm just curious. Seems like I got everybody there. Understatement. Thank you for that. Yeah. How many of you feel like your brain has been all over the place for the last 2 years? Yeah, we're going to blow up Zoom. And so my hope over the next couple of hours together is to help us kind of make sense out of all that. And my other hope is that I can share with you some of the research that my team has done, and also some of the evidence-based practices that we've developed that are now in over 4,000 schools across the United States and in 27 other countries. So you heard about my book, Permission to Feel. That's now been translated into 25 languages. And I'm just beyond grateful that there's so much interest, in talking about feelings. Now, let me ask you another question here right now. I'm kind of adopting some of Jeremiah's energy here, so this is working. How many of you are ready to start dealing with your feelings? Okay, the chat is not going fast enough now. I was like, well, scary, but yes, bring it on. Other people's feelings, right? Like they're telling everybody else, you got to calm down. But dealing with your own feeling, right? That's a little scarier, right? Skeptical, but let's go. Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate that. All right. Well, whether you're ready for it or not, that's what we're doing. And so I'm excited to work with all of you today. And thank you for showing up. Oh, but I need screen sharing, Jeremiah or Alex.
You got it, coming right up.
Thank you. I'm glad you've read my book. I appreciate that, Susan. I'm just going to get my screen sharing up and then we'll be ready to go. All right. And to be sure, you can see it. Jeremiah, can you see my screen? Good. All right, everybody. So, permission to feel, permiso para sentir, is a concept that is near and dear to my heart, as I will share with you in a little bit. And just a few things up front. One is I like to use social media to help people, not to hurt people, to support people in learning new strategies and having fun. So if you're interested in that, you can follow me on there. And then websites to follow. Just to make it a little bigger for you, that's my website for more information, social media handles, and I will be sharing a little bit about Ruler, which is our approach to social and emotional learning, as I shared, that is now in over 4,000 schools across the United States and other countries. Now, if you know anything about my work or things I've written, then you know that the first thing I'm going to ask you is a simple but profound question, which is, how are you feeling? Now, it's hard to answer that question a lot of times without tools. So we have a tool that we call the mood meter. It's a deceptively simple tool. On the x-axis, it says the word pleasantness. So I'm going to ask all of you right now, where's your brain? -5, your brain is shut down. +5, your brain is ready to approach the day. 0, you're kind of neutral in the middle. On the y-axis, it says energy. So question, do you feel energized like Jeremiah was or is? Or do you feel tired or depleted because your energy is just kind of low and you kind of ready to just like jump into bed and pull the covers over your head? So the first thing I'm going to ask you is to share your quadrant, your color. On the count of 1, everybody, what's your color? 3, 2, 1. I got red, green, yellow, green, blue, 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 yellow, yellow, green, green, blue, red. Turquoise-ish, like that. Yellow, green. So here I am, right? In many ways, I'm your teacher because I'm the one talking and I'm the one on Zoom. And you're all my students. I got a couple hundred students in my class right now. And I'm noticing that my students are all over the place emotionally. I've got people in the yellow, the red, the blue, and the green. Does this, for those of you who are educators, does this seem like your everyday life? That you come in with your feelings, and then you got everybody in your class that's got a different life experience, a different cultural background, different identity, and they've got their feelings? Does that resonate? Welcome to a staff meeting. Welcome to a classroom. Welcome to your home. Yeah. So obviously we can't just run around the world talking in terms of yellow, red, blue, and green. What we got to do is we got to get granular. So what I ask you to do right now is to convert your quadrant or color to a specific feeling word. On the count of one, everybody. Tres, dos, uno. Let's go. Exhausted, ready, worn out. Exhausted, defeated, calm. There's like a rhyme there. Drained, ready, hopeful. Discouraged, annoyed, overwhelmed, anxious. Busy, optimistic, calm, overwhelmed, overwhelmed. It's really, overwhelmed is coming up a lot, huh? Slightly irritated, hopeful. I think we're going to do a pair share tonight. I'm going to have all the irritated and overwhelmed people partner with the calm, content people. A lot of words, huh? Now, quick question for you. How many of you, with an honest yes in the chat box, found it difficult to find the right word? Like it was a little challenging to come up with that word. A lot of yeses. I'd like to take a minute and just think about that. Do you have hypotheses around that? Anyone? What's on your mind in terms of why would it be difficult for us highly educated people to find the word? Just take a moment and think about that. You weren't given permission to feel growing up. It's understandable. Because our cortisol levels are too high. Mind is too busy. We're not used to talking about it. There's so much in my brain. It requires transparency, vulnerability. Not enough words to quantify. Focus on others' feelings. We're just broad categories: happy, sad, mad, glad. Brain is taxed from the last 2 years. Multiple feelings at once. That was my vitamins, by the way. A flip. It's not a practice we have as a culture. Yeah, really great points here. Really great points. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's a question that we ask ourselves. It's a question that other people ask us, but we don't really know the answer to it. Hey, Jeremiah, can I borrow you for a minute if you're still available?
Let's do this.
All right. So let's just think about it on a typical day, right? You're in your office, right? People are coming and going. Let's say I'm one of your colleagues. And so would you mind just, you're going to do an emotion check-in with me. So ask me how I'm feeling.
Hey, Mark, how you feeling?
Fine. You?
Oh, good.
Great. All right. Have a good day. See you later. Bye-bye.
How are you too? I'm actually late for a Zoom, so I'll catch you later on today's staff meeting.
Sounds good. That's about as intimate as we get.
That's it.
All right. Ask me again if you don't mind.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
So you didn't even say how you're feeling. You said how you're doing.
Ah,
I'm going to call you out on that one.
that's great. That's great.
Let's try it
Uh,
again.
hey, Mark, how are you feeling?
Just for curiosity, doesn't it feel a little bit more vulnerable itself?
Even me asking. Yeah, totally.
Well, truthfully, Jeremiah, I've had a really long day. I'm tired. I'm excited to be here, but I'm also like chronically overwhelmed, like everybody else is on this call. I'm trying to eat healthy, and like running around New York City is not helping with that. So I'm kind of irritated about that. And I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. I got to get home tomorrow after this other meeting. And so like I'm kind of like, as you can see, like a combination of overwhelmed, excited, anxious, frustrated, and tired. And he's like, "Ay."
Yeah, I think I think in your work you'll get to this, but I think that's the fear, right? Like, hey, if
Yeah,
I ask you, but I, but if you say something like that, now I gotta listen. Do I have to be nice or to validate it?
yeah,
Um, yeah, that's a lot. So it almost feels like I'd rather not ask, so we don't have to head to those waters, so that I don't have to feel uncomfortable because you were being that vulnerable.
yeah. And so think about how that works um, with your children, if you have children as a parent, or your students, if you're a teacher, or your partner who you've never asked, "How are you feeling?" in 20 years,
Mm.
because you're afraid to hear the response. And so, what are people thinking about in terms of Jeremiah's and my just recent back and forth? What does it make you, what comes up for you in terms of the challenges? And by the way, I'm only on slide one, just trying to get us to talk about, how are you feeling? Vulnerability.
Vulnerability is unsettling, said someone. Mm.
What else? It's awkward, right? Because don't know, Jeremiah's like, I don't know what to say with all that. That's a lot of feeling. Looking to get fixed,
Mhm.
uncomfortable. It's not taught.
Mm.
What do we do? It can fuel the unbearable. It's much needed. So, one of the things that it makes me think about is A, firstly, Jeremiah's gonna want to ask the question, right? Instead of saying, how's it going or how you doing, like how are you feeling is a different lens. So one, does the person know the question to even ask? Number two, when the person asks the question, is the person who is hearing it to respond comfortable telling that person the truth? Because I don't know you that well, Jeremiah. I think you're a nice guy. Or what if you were someone who I didn't trust? An educator who I didn't trust, or a parent who I have difficulty with.
Mhm.
So I may just say, fine, nothing, leave me alone.
Mhm.
But I'm feeling a lot of other things. And then if I share overwhelmed or sad or angry or depressed, I guess I have to believe, Jeremiah, that you're going to care,
Mhm.
and that you might even be able to support me in some way or another.
Mhm.
And then, by the way, the whole thing is thrown in the garbage if neither one of us has a good emotion vocabulary to actually describe our experience. Um, and the whole thing is thrown away also if neither one of us, or especially the person who is the adult, has a pocket full of evidence-based strategies, right? Because in my family, you know, people might have asked the question, but then whenever it wasn't fine or happy, it was, you know, suck it up, get over it, toughen up, move on. It wasn't, let's talk about it, let's problem solve. It wasn't like my father would say, son, I know you're going through a lot being bullied in school. Let's sit down together and figure out how to problem solve. That wasn't what I experienced. How many of you can resonate with this kind of back and forth? Does this resonate with people? in terms of the challenge, in terms of what's needed to move beyond the superficial?
Hmm.
Great.
Can I
All
add
right,
another layer?
please.
I think too, I was kind of wearing my, kind of director hat or what have you, just kind of office executive hat, but even as a therapist, as you said, like having a suitcase full of evidence-based interventions, but then you throw on the dynamic of kind of the org chart. And then if someone were to ask me how I'm feeling, how that would go if I felt vulnerable to someone who maybe was, we were on the same team, but maybe in different spots on the org chart. So I think even the hierarchy that, our attendees might be in, that I think that plays a factor as
It
well.
completely does. And it's actually, we can bring it up right now. So here we're still in a pandemic. Schools, by the way, have just closed here in New York City today. We're going back to that again, which is not wonderful. Um, I'm a director, you're a director. I run a center. I have 60 full-time staff. Supposedly like a leading expert in emotional intelligence. Well, I guess I am, but that's in the research side of things. And then somebody on my team says, "Hey, Mark, how you feeling?" And I say, truthfully, I'm a mess. And all of a sudden that spreads throughout the entire organization.
Yeah.
Mark's a mess. Mark's a mess. Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And then
not,
half my team are starting to look for another job, right? Because they're like, well, if Mark can't deal with his feelings, like, what the heck am I going to do?
yes. If the pilot says that they're worried and nervous and anxious and overwhelmed, the whole plane is depending on them to get them to a place safely. And so it's
Yeah.
best not to share.
Yeah.
It
However,
seems like it.
it seems like it. That's our intuition, which, by the way, don't go with your intuition. Our intuition is based on our society, our repressive society around feeling, our Stoic philosophy influences. But let's change the scenario, and let's imagine I'll be the director. You're one of my employees. Ask me how I'm feeling again.
Dr. Brackett, how are you feeling?
Jeremiah, it's interesting. It's been really rough. It's hard to lead a team of 60 people at a university from your kitchen table. You can imagine it's been tough. And, I'm worried about a lot of things, but I'm so grateful that I have so many strategies to help me deal with that. I'm reminded like, wow, I got a strong team of directors to support me. And I'm reminded that, while I've had a lot of ups and downs, um, and some rainy days and sunny days, whenever it's a rainy day, there's a sunny day coming up soon. And so I'm remembering that because it's been some dark days lately, but just to let you know, like I'm feeling it, but I'm also recognizing that it's temporary. How about you?
Well, I just can't agree enough to where you're at. It's just so helpful to hear that someone else on our team, feels the same way. And I feel like you're able to put words to some of the same maybe worries or drives that I've had and with the ups and downs. And so in this moment, it feels a bit a relief and a bit of calm and feeling peaceful, just knowing that there's someone next to me who is also experiencing some of the same struggles while also trying to really utilize some of the tools that we have. I don't feel so alone anymore, so I really, really appreciate you sharing.
Cool. I'm happy to do it. And so like, do you see like, firstly, now we're like bonding over like my anxiety. B, I share and I'm vulnerable, but I'm vulnerable with strength,
Hmm.
right? Because I'm being real, but I'm not asking you to take care of me,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not saying I'm a mess and I'm demonstrating that I can feel the full range of emotions and some pretty strong, unpleasant ones. But at the same time, I'm working on it and I'm going to get through this. And I'm going to get through this with my cognitive strategies. I'm going to get through this, with my team. So I'm curious what our friends online think. How often do you think this happens in a school with a principal and their staff? How often does this happen with parents coming home from work? Or how many of you believe maybe we could improve upon these kinds of interactions? So these feelings are happening all day, every day, for sure. Play with this doesn't happen enough. Definitely room to improve. It's rare because we're usually rushing around, right? Don't have the time for the check-in, but it would be nice. Because here's the deal. Everybody's got the feelings, right? We all got the feelings. But we think that we have to, put them at the doorstep or, leave them at home. But you can't really do that because at your brain, you can't like take out your amygdala. It just doesn't work that way. You can't just like, I'm going to snip out that feeling part of my brain and just put it over there. It's with you every day, all day. Now, thank you so much, Jeremiah, for that role play. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I have a few fun things to share with you. First this is your cheat sheet. This is from the inside cover of my book, Permission to Feel. And you are only the third group of people, because today was the day that we released this, to have access to our brand new and free app. And this is called How We Feel. And this is a tool that I have co-developed with the founder and CEO of Pinterest. He created a separate nonprofit, and we've had volunteers from my center and volunteers from Pinterest work together to create what I'm going to call the best possible tool you can ever find to help you build emotional awareness. And so that mood meter that I just shared with you, the app, you can plot your feelings, you can record stories and journals, you can tag, I'm at home, and asks you, where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? So you can track how you're feeling with different people in different contexts. It provides you with 36 evidence-based strategies to help you regulate your emotions. I'm going to repeat that, 36 evidence-based strategies. And so it'll help you regulate your feelings, and it'll help you track those feelings to see where are you feeling these emotions? When are you feeling these emotions, and what can you do about it? And so please, all you have to do is go to the howwefeel.org website or take a picture of that URL or take a picture of the QR code. And I don't want you to be distracted by using the app during my presentation. So right now, I'm sorry to say it's only available on iOS, but once we clean it up, it's in beta form right now. So you're early adopters. We have not made a public release about this. Once we release it and get thousands of participants to use it, it will be cleaned up, improved upon, and then made available on Android and other platforms. Okay. Pretty cool, no? Everybody's supposed to say thank you. Free tools to help you build emotional self-awareness. So, I'm just kidding. I don't need to, I hope you enjoy it. I'm just joking with you. But it was very important to me in this collaboration to build something that was A, seriously based in research, B, beautiful, and C, free. And so just really excited to work with people who are both creative and super smart to make this available. And it'll be in other languages as well over time. The app is kid and student friendly. I'd say right now, middle school and high school, unless an adult would work with a child on it, in elementary school, still possible. All right, so please, when your time is over with me, play with that app and you can share it with other people if you like it. Now, let's come back together. So we got a lot of red and blue. when we ask people how they want to feel, nobody says, I want to be in the red or blue. They all say yellow and green. And so it brings up a dilemma, doesn't it? Which is, what do we do with all these feelings? What's the goal? Am I supposed to take those red right out of my head? Am I supposed to only try to feel yellow? You know, call that toxic positivity, right? The only emotion is yellow. I'm here to tell you that in my work with schools all over the world, there's a bias that everybody thinks that yellow is the best quadrant or the right quadrant. But the truth is there's no correct emotion. There's no correctness. We don't want to go in that direction because our emotions are our emotions. They're our feelings. They come throughout the day based on what we're doing and experiencing. And we don't want to judge them. Obviously, we don't want to spend our entire lives in the red and blue because that's going to be unhealthy. But we can't try to be in the yellow and green all the time because that's not attainable. And so we're looking for that equal balance. Now, permission to feel. That's the title of my presentation. It's the title of my book. And I guess my question for you is, do you feel like you have permission to feel? How many of you feel as if you can be your true, full feeling self with everyone? Depends on the environment. Definitely not. Not at work. Most of the time, unfortunately not. Not at all. Not all the time. So I guess it brings us a big question. What needs to happen to create a world, a community, a school system where all people have permission to feel? That's a big question that I'm going to ask you to solve. What do you think? What needs to happen? Explicit education. Need to feel safe. More education. Feel safe. People need to be okay with having the hard and uncomfortable conversations. Trusting relationships. We need to normalize it, not be judged. Trust. The right language. Reduce stigma. Got to teach them to see the value. Be more educated. Trust and respect. Less judgment. Increase awareness and reduce stigma. Really important ideas. Make it a bigger part of our culture. Validation. Model it. Emotional literacy. So you know me only because I've been talking for the last little bit. But today I stand before you as a 52-year-old man who is a professor. But I grew up in northern New Jersey. I had two parents, both of whom loved me to death. Neither of whom had any emotional intelligence. Sorry to say that, Mom and Dad, but it's true. My mother had terrible anxiety, but more challenging was that she, when I was being bullied as a kid and had challenges, it made her nervous. And she would say things like, "Don't tell me what's happening. I'll have a breakdown." My father, on the other hand, was a self-proclaimed tough guy. And when I would share, what was going on, he would say, "Son, I want you to toughen up. You got to toughen up, son." So I learned very early in life, I'm not going to talk to my parents about my feelings. So like somebody said, we have to model it it just wasn't modeled in my family. I didn't really have the permission to feel or express my feelings. Now, sadly, and I'm going to just share something traumatizing about myself, and I'm just letting you know up front. I was abused as a child. So a neighbor was a pedophile, and I and many other children in my neighborhood were sexually abused by this person. It's very hard, very painful. It happened from when I was 5 years old till I was about 10 years old. And I never shared that experience until I wrote my book at 49 years old. And here I am, a psychologist. And I was trapped, with my painful experiences, not able to communicate it. And back when I was a kid, it was the abuser who threatened me. And then, of course, going home to parents who were like, toughen up and don't tell me I'll have a breakdown. You're trapped with your feelings. Now, on the other hand, when I was 11, my mother had a brother whose name was Uncle Marvin, who was actually writing a curriculum to teach kids about feelings. And Uncle Marvin happened to be living with us one summer because he was going to grad school in a town nearby where I lived. And we sat in the backyard one evening when I was 11. And he looked at me in a way like no other adult had really ever looked at me. And he said, "Mark, how are you feeling? Really? How are you feeling?" And it was that moment that I opened up internally to my family about what was happening. And he didn't say, "I'm going to have a breakdown" or "toughen up." What he said was, "We're going to get through this together." And so I'm here to tell you that one person asking me, "How are you feeling?" and pausing and listening and providing unconditional love and support turned my entire life around. Because I was not going in the best direction. To be fully transparent, I had an eating disorder. I was engaging in self-harm, and I was probably clinically depressed at that time. And it took that adult to have that initiative, to create the context, to create the space. And so, firstly, thank you for listening to that, and appreciate that. But I know that, I have my own unique experience, meaning that's part of my life story. Everyone has their own story. Each of you on this webinar has your own lived experience that involves multiple relationships, some going well, some not going well. Some painful, some just beautiful. And I tell people, right, you don't have to be abused to feel like you're the only one who knows or cares about how you feel. And I pause there and ask you a big question. Did you have an Uncle Marvin? Was there that caring, loving adult growing up that gave you permission to feel? An aunt, an uncle, a friend, a cousin, a coach, older sibling. And if you did have someone, or even if you didn't, what do you see as the characteristics? Do these look familiar to you? Compassionate, empathic, non-judgmental, unconditional love, validating, vulnerable, supportive, patient, inviting, honesty, authenticity, kind, open-minded. What else would you add to this list? Encouraging, trusting, good listener, stable, safe. Nice. So the first step in any of this work, and the reason why I spent so much time on this, is we've got to give ourselves permiso para sentir, permission to feel. We got to give the people we live with, the people we work with, our children, our friends, even the people we don't even like that much. We got to give them the permission to be their true, full feeling selves too. Let me pause there and just take any questions in the chat, anything coming up for anybody. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Caitlin. I'm also here to tell you that if you didn't have an Uncle Marvin, it's never too late to get one. And interestingly, you can be your own Uncle Marvin. Any questions, any comments? A lot of us weren't open to hearing the question either. You still want to get that app? That's it. All right. Now, some of you might get uncomfortable even going in this direction. You know, it's vulnerable. It's not easy if you're not accustomed to it. And so I always want to make sure that people recognize that the work on emotions and emotional intelligence that I do is all rooted in rigorous science. And that research, which is covered in my book, actually chapter 2 of my book has 800 scholarly references. And it demonstrates how clearly our emotions matter for attention, memory, learning, decision-making, relationship quality, physical and mental health, and performance and creativity. Here's what I'm here to tell you. In my role as an educator, a professor, firstly, where I work, everybody's smarter than I am. They all have higher grades and test scores than I've got. I was not a great student. I just grade all their papers now, which is kind of cool. But putting that aside, I assumed that every one of my students was going to be enormously successful in life because they got to a place like Yale, which I never would have gotten into, by the way. And what I'm seeing over and over again is that 90%, at least this year, of our students are so stressed out, they want treatment for it. 90%. I'm seeing students so overwhelmed they can't focus. I'm seeing the most creative people not be able to complete their projects. And it's not because of their intelligence. And it's not because of their lack of creativity. It's because of their lack of emotional intelligence. They don't know what to do with all the feeling. And the feeling has power over them. That's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want emotions to take over. We want to use them intelligently, hence emotional intelligence. Does this resonate with people? This idea, this general idea makes sense? Wonderful. So, my goal is to support all of you in becoming emotion scientists as opposed to emotion judges. So what's the emotion scientist? The emotion scientist is open to this information. They're curious, they're reflective. They're in learner mode. They want to get granular. Is it happy or is it ecstatic? Is it down or is it disappointment? Is it frustration or is it anger? And when they fail at regulating their feelings, they have a growth mindset. They don't just say, this is who I am, get over it, or I can't take it anymore, or I'm having a breakdown. They're like, you know something? I can learn from this, I can grow from this, and I can do better. The emotion judge, on the other hand, I work with some of these, and I have some people I've coached that are these people. But I'm not talking about feelings. I just had to talk for 100 business people, and they were like, are we actually gonna have to sit and talk about these feelings for this long a period of time? I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah. And it took me an hour to kind of break their resistance. They were judges at first. Closed, critical, doesn't really matter how you feel. That's one guy said, Mark, like, why are you teaching me all these emotion words? Doesn't really matter how you feel, just do your job. And I share with him, that how you feel while you're doing your job matters. How many of you would agree with that? That how you feel while working, how you feel while parenting actually contributes to the effectiveness of that working or parenting. Yeah, of course. So we want to move away from that fixed mindset. My father had a fixed mindset. He used to say to me, son, this is the way I deal with things. Get over it. I'd be like, Dad, I'm getting over it. Like 10 years of therapy and a doctorate in psychology and 25 years of writing emotional intelligence curriculum. Thank you very much. So take a moment and reflect on this for a minute. Are you the emotion scientist? Or are you the emotion judge? What do you think? Let me ask it a bit more challengingly. How many of you notice that you are emotion scientists with some people, but emotion judges with other people? Depends on the situation, exactly. Yes, that's true. So take a moment, everybody. I'm going to ask you right now, what brings out the judge in you? Who brings out the emotion judge in you? What are the things that people do that make you snap into judge mode as opposed to scientist mode? When faced with a judge, impatience, your own regulation, hatred, intimidating people, triggers, dangerous people, disingenuous, people who whine and complain and don't want to be helpful, illogical stuff, dishonesty, unsafe decisions. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So let's think about this. Step one, we're going to strive to be, well, first, step one, we're going to give ourselves permission to feel, to be our true, full feeling selves. Step two, we're going to strive to be the emotion scientist as opposed to the emotion judge. And now step three is we got to learn the skills. We got to learn the skills of emotional intelligence. So I'm going to ask everyone to take a nice long inhale and a nice long exhale. Nice long inhale. and a nice long exhale. I'm going to give us a 1 minute just break, just a little break. I'm going to give you a break from my voice. I'm going to give you a break from my facial expression. And I'm going to just have you just sit with everything we've talked about thus far. I'll take myself off screen for just 1 minute. I can figure out how to do that. And I'm going to ask you to digest everything we've talked about thus far. And before I continue, I'm going to ask you to write in the chat when you get a moment in the next minute, what's your one takeaway thus far? Let's make that 2 minutes of just setting or sitting, settling, digesting, and then sharing. Go ahead. Okay, thank you for doing that. Lots of great responses here. Time. You can respond to how you're feeling, be a model. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. The process. All emotions are information. Scientist versus judge. You can be both a scientist and a judge. To give all people permission to feel. Stop judging. Listen. You can be your own Uncle Marvin. Not to be ashamed. Being vulnerable is a strength. Somebody just joined, no worries. It's okay not to be okay. We all have emotions. Trying to be aware. Giving space. Nice. Wonderful. Thank you for doing that. Are there any questions before I move forward? Any questions before I move forward to the next section?
I have one, Mark, that has come through the Google form here, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Memphis. This question comes from Memphis. What is your advice on creating a safe environment for boys to open up about their feelings? I work in an all boys school as a counselor and striving to build that emotional literacy with my boys.
And is that person a male or female, or what's their, do they report it?
They did not. My complete guess is they would identify as female, is my
Okay.
guess.
All right. Um, so I think creating the context, like you said, is critically important. Obviously, whether it's male, female, or other identity, it's just being that open um, person and being showing the vulnerability, you know, like I did, when I shared how my feelings of being anxious earlier with you. Um, Maybe bringing in other teachers and other guests to have those conversations, looking for, you know, even movies where there's men who are vulnerable to show those clips, to show that it's okay to have these feelings. I think that's the first step. In Ruler, which is the name of our model of social emotional learning, we have very specific tools for that. Like the mood meter, that's a big tool of Ruler, but there's curriculum, that we provide schools with to teach it. And one thing that we recommend is that you gotta know your audience. And so you might be able to have them plot their feelings, but not share them publicly. It may be a starting point so that everybody knows they have the permission to kind of plot, but they don't have to have it be disclosed. And then they get practice at that level of it. And then you do partner sharing, and then you can do group sharing, and sort of gradually introduce your students to feeling safe and comfortable doing so. And then really monitor how you respond to it. One of the challenges that I've had, or that I've noticed, is that I've had male teachers, even a boy. Let's say, Jeremy, we'll reverse roles. Let's say you're one of these like kind of like kids who's kind of difficult.
Okay.
You're known as being a bit of a pain in the butt,
Okay.
and I'm now the teacher doing this work in my classroom. I'm a male teacher, and I say, Jeremiah, where are you on the mood meter? And then you say, I'm in the red. Ready? Hey, Jeremiah, where are you on the mood meter?
Ugh, I'm on the red.
Yeah, what's new?
Oh.
Not a good response, right?
Right, right.
And so what I've done essentially with Jeremiah is I've dismissed his feelings. And now Jeremiah is going to say, look, I'm not going to be my true self with this guy anymore. And so we got to be really careful about how we respond to these emotions. Um, that's what I'll say for now. Any other questions, or is that for now?
Looks like there's one more here in the chat, the most recent chat. I'm going to read it out for us.
Mm-hmm.
So this person asks, any tips for how to help, also looks like the same theme, how to help boys regulate their emotions when it comes to frustrations with separation of parents or an absentee parent. They are noticing that acting out is a response to a lot of these situations. So how can I challenge these boys to regulate what they are feeling in positive ways?
Yeah. Well, firstly, you really want to get granular here. So, as we jump into emotion regulation in a little bit, um, you want to know what the feeling is, right? How are they really feeling? I was a kid who had, because of my abuse and my bullying, I was afraid to go to school because I was getting horrifically bullied. I oftentimes would show up very dysregulated at home. I hate you. I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I hate school. I hate everything. And I went to karate and I hate karate. And essentially my parents thought I was angry all the time because I looked angry. The truth is, I was feeling fear and shame most of the time. But it was masked by the toxic masculine way of expressing emotions, which is everything is anger. And so what would happen is that I would trigger my parents, trigger my teachers. I was getting suspended from school, punished because I was kind of acting out, but no one paused to actually find out how I was feeling. Now, if you were my teacher or my parent and you realized I wasn't angry, I was actually feeling shame because of being made fun of, because of my identity and bullying, don't you think your response would have been quite, wouldn't your response have been quite different? And so that's the first step, I think, in working is first, don't get triggered yourself. It's so easy to get triggered as the adult, because kids can be activating. So learn how to deactivate before you try to regulate your own emotions and the students. And then as we go through the training today, hope you'll learn some tips and strategies on how to coach to really find out what the child is feeling. And you don't want to tell a child, you need to calm down. You need to refocus. You need to pay attention. You need to stop that. Nobody wants to be told that. And so what you really want to try to do, I think, is find a way into that child's life by getting to know their story. And then asking them, is that helpful? Is it helpful the way you're feeling, or is it unhelpful? What might help you manage that anger? What might help you with your disappointment? Would you like to hear some suggestions, some ideas? And so you want to meet them where they're at and then find your entry point and then help them and be co-explorer with them in finding the strategy that works best for them, not the one that you think is going to be best for them. And that's a challenge because I'm a neurotic extrovert, just to let you know. And so a neurotic introvert. I almost just made up a whole new personality for myself. I have a dinner later on tonight and I'm like, nobody's listening to it because they're not going to be here. I'm dreading the dinner because it's with a large group of people and I'm just not into it. I want to go out to dinner with my partner or a friend tonight, one person. Actually, I don't even want to go out to dinner. I want to order takeout and be by myself. Because that's what an introvert likes to do in general. And so getting to know the personality of the student is helpful because it guides you to understanding whether the strategy that you're going to be either suggesting or that they come up with will be helpful or not. Because Jeremiah, now that you know this about me, right? And I say, gosh, I've been running around, and you probably aren't going to say, Mark, let's go hang out at a sports bar tonight. We can watch the game and drink beers and everybody yelling and screaming. I'd be like, that is about the last thing in the world I want to do tonight. Does that resonate?
Yes, very, very much so. Yes, and like you
Now, you
said,
might be the person, you seem like you want, I'm making this up, but you may seem like someone, and so my knowing your personality and what, makes you feel refreshed is helpful because it can make better suggestions. Because when you're in the feeling, you don't think about those strategies. So that's my advice as of right now. We're going to go deeper into that question, and I appreciate it. But first step, don't be activated, be present, which means you got to self-regulate. B, be the emotion coach and scientist to gather the information. And C, work with the child to find the strategy that works best for them, not the one that you think might be best for them. First skill of Rula, recognizing emotion, identifying an emotion by interpreting thoughts, physiology, as well as other people's facial expressions, vocal tones, body language, and behavior. We're going to play a little game. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. Can you all see me?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to display an emotion, and all of you are going to guess it. Here we go. That's my hand, by the way, which really looks weird. 3, 2, 1. What do you see? happy, content, curious, annoyed, tired, content, interested, curious, content, happy, curious, pleased, amused, contempt, present, curious, indifferent, amused, chilled, don't care. So, Jeremiah, what are you noticing what do you see there? What's your first impression of all the different emotions that people are saying I'm feeling?
It is a very wide range. It runs a spectrum between something that you would want a student to be, or you would be maybe a little bit more enjoyable as an educator, all the way to something that would be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, like this guy's faking it, to unimpressed, to irritated, don't care,
Hmm.
nervous, to happy, amused, content. So everyone, what's the take-home message from this exercise in the Wellness Together participants' emotion perception skills? What do you think? Type it in the chat. What is your immediate? You can't trust a facial expression. You can't just tell. You never really know. You're going to interpret based on where you're at.
Hmm.
Can't read a book by its cover. But let's be honest. Don't we respond to people based on how we see their facial expressions? Right? So here I am. Let's say I'm the boss, which in my center I am. I walk in, I make that facial expression. Half of my staff is like, Mark's feeling calm, content, tranquil, peaceful, relaxed, serene. Half of my people are like, he's faking it. He's irritated. He's annoyed. He's feeling contempt. What do you think? What are the implications? What do you think of the implications? Misunderstanding. Got to know people better. Right. And that misinterpretation causes gossiping. It causes people to avoid contact. Someone has an idea in my center, a research idea, they're probably going to avoid coming to me and talking to me about it. And so the list goes on. The assumptions, great word for that. All right, let's go back to the slides. I wanted to share a few nuances with this skill. The first is people see different things in the same expression. Who's right? 2, question, are we reading others' emotions or are we attributing emotions to them? How I feel or how I want to feel might influence someone else's perception. I want to say out loud that we do have biases in racial and other identities in terms of emotion perception. When we're reading someone's facial expression, we activate stereotypical information. And this is around race, gender, culture. And so if we were brought up in a culture where we've deemed these people, which is a terrible term, express emotions this way, or they have these predominant emotions, we're going to project that onto other people's facial expressions. It's just important to know that so we can take a pause and not do what you all did with me, which is assume that I'm feeling happy or contemptuous. That's why familiarity matters. Consider the instances of emotion you've had with loved ones versus new colleagues. And I'm here to tell you, the only way to really know is to pause and ask the question and really listen. Any questions about emotion perception? Questions about emotion perception or recognition? The next skill is understanding emotion, knowing the causes and consequences. especially in how emotions influence our thinking, our learning, our decisions, and our behavior. How when we're in certain moods, we think this way. A few things about that. The first is that we have to acknowledge that our emotions are constructed. So I'll give you an example. I live now in the countryside of Connecticut. And this winter I was sitting in my bedroom, which is now my office at the same time. And I look out the window and I see a bobcat walking across my property. Now, I'm a city boy and now I live like in nowhere's land. I literally had a complete meltdown. And I was like, we have to move. We're all dead. We can't ever let their dogs out again. I was freaked out. Now, the question is it the bobcat that made me experience fear? What do you think? Yes or no? Does the bobcat cause me to feel fear? Yes or no? No. Then what was it? What was it that caused me to have the emotion of fear? Judgment, not knowing how to deal with it, preconceived ideas, my perception. Yes, Sanchita. Our emotions are appraisals. Thank you very much, Caitlin. My lack of experience, my lack of understanding of bobcats is what created the feeling. So no one makes us feel a certain way. We create our emotions. There are themes for emotions, like anger is about injustice and disappointment is about unmet expectations. Anxiety is about uncertainty. But what I perceive as being an injustice and what you perceive as being an injustice might be completely different. Does that make sense to everybody? Because my lived experience is different than your lived experience. And that means that what might make you feel angry based on your lived experience may not have nothing to do with what makes me angry. And so the goal isn't for me to convince you to feel angry about the things I feel angry about. The goal is for us to have a common definition of anger and to understand each other's experiences so that we can support each other when we feel that way and don't want to feel that way. What do you think about that? What do you think about that idea? Makes sense? You like it? Good. I'm sticking to it. It would save relationships. Thank you, Julie. Because how many of us are, why would you feel that way? Why would you feel that way? Because I feel that way. Thank you very much. Labeling emotion. Having and using a nuanced vocabulary to describe the full range of emotions. Why does this matter? Well, think about it. Without language, we can't communicate our needs. We can't get the support we need. I have become obsessed with new language. So if you like this kind of stuff, please follow me on Instagram, just marc.brackett on Instagram, because every week now I post emotion words from other cultures. So every week you're going to learn a new emotion word that we don't even have in English. My favorite one is mudita. It's a Sanskrit word that is about living vicariously through other people's joy. How many of you ever felt mudita? Where you weren't really happy at yourself, you weren't feeling joy yourself, but then you were walking around, you saw someone smile, or you saw other people playing, and you're like, oh God, that's so beautiful. Isn't that the best? You can like live vicariously through other people's joy, sympathetic joy. Expressing emotion, knowing how and when to express emotions with different people across different contexts, including all of these very powerful moderators, whether it be race, or gender, or power, social status, ethnicity, culture. What does that really mean? Well, we have to acknowledge that there are rules in society. I'm a white man who is a very privileged man. I work at an Ivy League university. I have anger privilege. I can get angry, and I won't get arrested, most likely, unless I'm violent. But if I'm expressing anger at someone on the streets, people are going to stand away. They may get upset, but they're not going to call the police. If I were a man of a different colored skin, the rules would be different. And I bring this up because it is an injustice for the rules to be different about who gets to express their feelings. We know that minority groups often have to engage in more emotional labor, meaning a lot of faking, a lot of masking their true feelings out of fear, of the repercussions, and that impacts identity development and health. And we have to be mindful of ethnocentrism and ethnocentrism. So I'll give you an example. I give a talk in Wall Street. Hello, Dr. Brackett. They shake my hand, I almost break my hand. And then I go to South Korea, where I study the martial art, and people are like, Mark-san, and they bow to me. A principal from Southeast Asia came to me here in New York City and said, my superintendent is always yelling at me that I'm not giving him good eye contact. And I said, well, what does your superintendent know about your background? Nothing. Well, there you go. The superintendent needs to understand that some cultures have different rules around eye contact than other cultures, and that there's no one way that's the right way. How does this resonate with you and sit with you? Because I think it's so important for us to acknowledge that if we're going to really create an emotionally intelligent society and world, we need to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field, which means that it's not the job of the person who doesn't have the permission to express their feelings to beg people for the permission. It's the job of the people in power. It's the job of the people in society to have an eye out and make sure that there is equity in terms of voice, in terms of expression. Regulating emotion. The skill of emotion regulation. Yes, so thank you, Judith, for that. And expressing emotion, actually related to your point, if you ask children from Japan, for example, to draw a picture of someone who's happy, they draw a very gentle smile like this. You ask a boy in New Jersey to draw a picture of someone who's happy, it's like this. Doesn't mean that the boy in Jersey versus the boy in Korea or Japan is any more or less happy. It's just that they've learned throughout their own culture that this is the way, we create stereotypes around these feelings. Regulating emotion. This is where we're going to spend the rest of our time together. Are you ready? So regulating emotion with an equity lens. Really important points here. Take a moment and just read those, please. First, emotion regulation is not about controlling emotions. No one wants to be controlled. No one wants to be controlled. No one wants to be told to calm down or suck it up or get over it or, put your bootstraps on. It's about learning how to use emotions wisely. Emotion regulation is connected to our personality. Like I shared those examples earlier with Jeremiah on introversion, extroversion, to our family background. For example, when I go to Italy, people are so expressive. They kiss, kiss, kiss. In Korea, they bow. It's not right or wrong. Related to culture. Context matters. It's very interesting. A lot of couples tell me, well, like everybody thinks my husband, my wife is amazing, at work, but they're a mess at home. It's like, well, if you can regulate there, then why can't you regulate over there? Because it's a choice, or maybe you're triggered more easily in one context than the other. So the goal of emotion regulation is to support others in finding what works best for them, not what works best for you. And I want to push this point. There is no criterion of correctness. So just big picture, the goal from my perspective is to become a compassionate self and social emotion scientist who learns helpful strategies and then applies them to oneself and others. Few misconceptions that I want to just really make sure we talk about. One, people confuse temperament and personality. People confuse temperament and personality with emotional intelligence or emotion regulation. I am someone who's neurotic. I tend to have kind of, I'm irritable, then I'm a little calm, and then I'm a little irritable again. That's not my emotional intelligence. That's just my tendency through my biology and my development to be a little bit more like that. Some people are more like that. I know some people who are like happy all the time. I find them very difficult to be around, to be honest with you. But you know what I'm getting at? Like, what? Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Like, wait a minute. It feels like the world's coming to an end. Please don't tell me everything's fine. There are people who are kind of low energy and unpleasant. There are people who are very organized in their lives. There are people who are disorganized in their lives. None of that has to do with emotional intelligence. Okay? Emotional intelligence is the skill of what to do with that information. Misconception number 2. Some people are skilled, others aren't. No one is born with an area of their brain called, here's your emotion vocabulary and here's your strategies for regulating. It's all learned. And you got to believe in this stuff. You got to have your motivation is critically important. A few other misconceptions. It's used to down-regulate negative emotions and prolong positive ones. Not true. We regulate all emotions. Sometimes we're happy and we want to stay in that positive mood. Sometimes we got to we're going to a funeral, we got to lower our energy. Sometimes we're calm. And it's like, you ever been around somebody who's like calm all the time? It's like, Mark, come on. We're at a football game. Can you show a little bit of energy? So it's used to upregulate, downregulate, side regulate. It's not about controlling. It's about using wisely. It's not about controlling kids' behavior. It's about supporting children and finding strategies that work best for them, given their unique identities, strengths, and culture. And lastly, there's no correctness. We are not, it's like, my way is not the way. Oh, 2 more, look at that. Can't remember my last. There's no best strategies. We're obsessed right now in certain, like at the university, it's all about mindfulness. And by the way, I love mindfulness. It is not going to solve every one of our challenges. Give an example. During the pandemic, my mother-in-law, who's from Panama, came to live with us. Now, it was accidental. She came 2 weeks before the pandemic for a wedding. We thought we were going to send her home after a month. And then everything shut down, including the airlines going to Panama for 8 months. Asked me how I was feeling in month 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You want to know? It wasn't good. And I don't know what to tell you, but I tried breathing exercises and none of the breathing exercises sent her home. I did downward dog and none of my frustration or anger came out of my body from doing downward dog. The only way to deal with my feelings was to build a better relationship with my mother-in-law because we were driving each other crazy. We had to do social problem solving. Let me pause there. Does that resonate with everybody? That we try to, in our society, have these quick fixes. Like breathing exercises are going to solve the world's problem. I breathe in and out. I was breathing. And now I can't wait for you to go home. That wasn't helping me deal with my issues. So what do we, digging in feels so uncomfortable, right? We try to tie everything up with a pretty bow. Right, breathing helps, but it doesn't change the other person. I appreciate that, Jenna. But building a better relationship, that's part of emotion regulation. I've got to learn how to talk about my feelings with this person. And I agree, Sanchita. The hardest thing to do is to practice strategies in the moment. Okay. And that's related to the final one, which is that we are obsessed with self-regulation in our society. Everybody's supposed to just figure it out on their own on how to regulate. But let's face it, in my home, my mother-in-law and I were constantly co-regulating. She was crying, I got angry, I cried, she got angry, we both got frustrated. You know, it was all over the place. And so how she felt influenced how I felt, you know, she really wanted it. And then I realized, by the way, there was one night where, by the way, we had a huge fight. And she looked at me and she goes, are you really the director of the Center for Emotional Intelligence? And I said, not tonight. Oof. Anybody want to see that night? That would be a video that would get me kicked out of my job. And the, yeah, gosh, I remember that night. And then I went to bed that night and I'm like, but Mark, guess what? You are the actual director of the Center for Emotional Intelligence. Maybe you should try your strategies. And so I needed to apologize. I needed to ask for forgiveness. I need to realize, guess what? That it's not just about me. What do you think about that? It wasn't just about me. Do you think my mother-in-law wants to be trapped in a house with me for 8 months? Let's get real here. She wanted to go home more than I wanted to leave, probably. But when we get activated and we have these strong feelings, we kind of lose perspective. Does that resonate? We don't realize the impact that we're having. We don't take other people's perceptions or other people's experiences. We just become very self-focused. Okay, so I need to do a little bit of like chilling now because I feel activated by telling that story. I'm okay. I'm just curious. I might ask some of you to fill out a survey this afternoon. How many of you have used some of these strategies during the last 2 years as soothing strategies? Guilty? I can't take it anymore. Maybe had one too many beers or glasses of wine. Get lost in the news and just watch them. Lock yourself in a room, don't want to talk to people. Yelling and screaming. So what is it about these strategies? Well, guess what? Where do you think you learned? Like, how many of you needed to get your bachelor's degree or master's degree or whatever degree you have or no degree? How many of you got your doctorate from learning these strategies? You know, how many of you needed to go to school to learn these strategies? Where do you think you learned them? Where did you learn to have at home? Family, it's all around us. Peers, examples. It's socially constructed, watching others. Media. Yeah. Mr. Rogers didn't use any of these unhelpful ones. He used the helpful ones. So these unhelpful ones are often learned early. They tend to require a little bit of effort, like none. It's easy to say, go blank yourself. Right? How much thought needs to go into saying that? No, it's automatic. It's stimulus, react, not stimulus, pause, respond. Happens outside of awareness. Has anyone here ever had a moment where you said something like to someone you love deeply that was just a little bit mean or hurtful? Anyone? Can we all just come clean on that? And how many people in that moment, when you say like that mean or hurt, say, I want to intentionally be nasty. I want to intentionally be mean or hurtful. We tend not to want to be that way. We're mostly programmed to be kind, compassionate, good people. But when we get triggered, we resort to flight, self-protection mode. And we alienate people by saying that thing that is hurtful because it provides immediate relief. It makes the person feel better. It pushes them away. But it becomes our bad habit over time. How many of you have some bad habits when it comes to emotion regulation? Like bad habits, go to unhelpful strategies. Most of mine are bad. Who doesn't? The problem with these is that they tend to not be helpful. They tend to be harmful. They don't solve problems. They derail us from making sound decisions and achieving goals, and they decrease our wellness. So I've been really curious. What gets in the way? What gets in the way of healthy emotion regulation? What do you think? What are the things that get in the way? Your ego, your circumstances, habits, hard to unlearn learned behaviors, lack of sleep, exhaustion, energy, effort, self-esteem, feeling bad, lack of self-awareness, lack of words, not having the tools to respond. Bad habits. Yeah, you're coming with good things. I try to divide these up into 3 areas. The personal, things like I'm just tired, fatigue, stressed. I just have too high expectations of other people. I don't trust you. I have a need for control, prior baggage, don't know any better. relational, others, impatience with me, negativity, lack of support, feeling disrespected, environmental, too many demands, feeling stressed about economics, COVID, societal division, war, feeling confined, time of the day. Does this resonate with you? So, what are the strategies? ¿Cuáles son las estrategias? I'm practicing my Spanish. I gotta go talk in Spanish soon. So, I call these the big seven. The first is, permission to feel. It's permission to feel. It's become an emotion scientist. So I'm going to ask everyone, we're going to take a 3-minute kind of exercise break, mental exercise break. When you see the term emotion scientist or emotion judge and you apply it to regulation, what comes up to you? What do you think the characteristics are of a person who is an emotion scientist versus an emotion judge when it comes to regulation? Just take a moment and think about that, okay? Don't write it yet. Just really process it. What are the specific behaviors that someone who's an emotion scientist engages in versus an emotion judge engages in around emotion regulation? What are the characteristics? I'm just getting some more water. So the emotion scientist validates their own and others' emotions, acknowledges and validates. They can reflect at and look at the data, their own data. They're open. They meditate. They respond versus react because they pause. Reflective versus reactive, non-threatening. They're open to feedback, open-minded, open to growth and learning. Self-reflection, curious. They're curious, open, honest, comfortable, non-reactionary, flexible. Curiosity versus critic. The emotion scientist is self-aware, looks for stresses and triggers, reflects on life experience with healthy versus unhealthy strategies. They get curious, they ask questions, they don't make statements. They want to support, they want to figure out solutions versus making plans to control. Listen, they get granular. They don't own all the thoughts, they get research, they ask questions, they collect information, they explore. Inquisitive, good listener. Nice. So that means, well, let me ask us another question. When the emotion scientist messes up, when you say that thing that's just mean and hurtful, or when you roll your eyes and someone notices it, or you realize that you drank one too many glasses of wine or beer the night before and you wake up with a headache and are tired, but you're still an emotion scientist, what do you do? What does the emotion scientist do? What does the emotion judge do? So the emotion scientist takes ownership, learns from it, has self-compassion. self-forgiveness. The judge denies, justifies, minimizes. That's really lovely. Denies, justifies, minimize. It rhymes too. The scientist would apologize. The judge would probably shame themselves or others. The judge is self-deprecating. Accountability versus blame. Nice. So everybody, who do you want to strive to be like? The scientist or the judge? Apologizes and adjusts. Scientist, scientist, scientist am I. So what makes it hard? Why do we have so many emotion judges in our homes, in our schools, in our society? Literally, why do we have so many emotion judges? What's it going to take to create a world filled with emotion scientists? It's fear, ego protection. It's easier to be an emotion judge. I haven't been taught. Greater compassion it's going to take. Not sure it's possible. Come on, otherwise what am I going to do with my career? Being judgy is the norm. It's easy to judge because it's external, whereas scientists look within and do the hard work. Each generation is constantly teaching the emotion judgment. It just becomes like generational. That discomfort with vulnerability, all the isms, humility, get rid of right versus wrong, insecurity. We're better with our students than we are with our own children. We've got to create the habit. Self-compassion and compassion, vulnerability, identity. Nice. Okay, so everyone, that's the first kind of state of the work. Do we understand that? Do we get it? The first phase is like, you got to have the motivation. You got to be interested. You got to be motivated. You got to want to be someone who is an emotion scientist around this stuff. Then we can build emotional awareness. We can build those ruler skills. Because people are not feeling the best. As a matter of fact, the number one emotion word in society right now is anxiety. For children, it's frustration. So here's your big question of the night. Anxiety, stress, pressure, fear, frustrated and overwhelmed. Anxiety, stress, pressure, fear, frustrated, overwhelmed. What's the difference? Everyone take 2 minutes on your own to reflect on this. What's the difference among these emotions? Said another way, can you define all of these emotions? Is there a difference? The intensity? Difference in degree? all emotions to avoid, but they're part of our lives, based on a primary emotion. What's the difference? Anxiety, stress, pressure, fear, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Oh my. Cause and effect. Are either internally imposed or externally imposed. But is that the definition? The degree and longevity. Overwhelmed is much more temporary than anxiety. Could be. A feeling of being out of control. Okay. How many of you find this exercise difficult? Give me a yes in the chat if you think this is a difficult exercise. Yeah. How many of you, if I were to just say, you know what, everybody, we're done. How many of you would feel like, yes, I'm going to go explain to my family, to my friends, to my dog, the psychological difference between and among these emotions? Or how many of you would be like, oh, this is harder than I thought. Couldn't do it. Think about that for a minute. Christina, I'm a therapist and this is hard. Okay. You'd be like, school counselor, and this is tough work. So here are the differences. Anxiety is about uncertainty. Stress, too many demands and not enough resources. Pressure, something at stake, is dependent upon our behavior. Fear, impending danger. Frustration, I can't overcome the obstacle. Overwhelmed, overcome by emotion. Yeah. And so now you see why everybody just says whatever's on their mind. I'm stressed, but they're really anxious. Or I'm anxious, but I'm really under pressure. Or I'm frustrated, but they really feel pressure. Does this make sense to everybody? That we have a world filled with people who don't even know how they really feel. How many of you now, after looking at this, start realizing, yikes? Now, my big question to all of you is, why am I the psychology professor who is pushing and pushing and pushing people to be more emotionally granular? Why? Why do we care? That was not a rhetorical question. Prevents trauma, builds resiliency, creates awareness. We need a common language. Because when you label it, you can tame it. When you name it, you can tame it. To determine the degree and act accordingly, address our needs more accurately, we will be making healthier choices. It's what connects us to others. The more we can define and acknowledge our feelings, the better we can help ourselves. We need safe and brave spaces for our students. It takes really knowing and understanding to regulate. It allows us to understand and how we're feeling, and we can handle it differently. It helps with our wellness. Exactly. Because let's think about it for a minute. If I'd say, I'm stressed out, I can't take it anymore. And you tell me, Mark, just do some breathing exercises. Breathe in and breathe out. But none of that takes away that I have the fact that there are too many demands and not enough resources. Like what I need is to take stuff off my plate. Does that make sense? What's going to help me with the stress is to reduce the things on my plate. When I'm anxious, like for example, I am an anxious flyer. Turbulence makes me crazy. I have a friend, not a friend, a cousin who's a pilot. He once told me, Mark, you never have to worry about turbulence. There's never been an example. I mean, there's never been a crash because of turbulence. I'm like, Richard, are you kidding me? He's like, Mark, I'm telling you, never been an accident because of turbulence. So you're telling me I've been worrying every time the plane bumps up and down that I'm going to die. And he's like, yeah, you're wasting your time. Like you're just making stuff up in your head. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so now every time I fly and there's turbulence, I'm like, you know something? No one's ever died from turbulence. And all of a sudden I'm not as stressed out. Or better said, I'm not as anxious. A lot of my students, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. I'm like, what's bothering me? My parents keep texting me, they keep checking in on me. Oh, well, guess what? That's pressure. Going to yoga is not going to stop your parent from texting you constantly. You got to deal with the parent. Fear is legitimate. It's about danger. You should, if you're afraid, it's because you literally perceive something as a threat. Frustration, overcoming an obstacle. Overwhelm is when you're saturated. For years, I thought I had anxiety problems, and I realized that I do have some anxiety. And then I got more granular, and I realized, you know something? I'm not anxious actually, as much as I thought I was. I am a workaholic, and I am overwhelmed. I need to give myself space and freedom. Does that relate to anybody? How many of you need a little bit more space in life? A little breathing room. So much work. Now, when we ask people how they hope to feel, nobody says anxious, overwhelmed, frustrated. They say they want to feel joyful. We don't have time for this one, so I'm going to go through this one. Happy, joy, contentment. Same or different? Happiness, joy, and contentment. Same or different? Different. You know that's going to be the case. Happiness, kind of a blanket term, usually associated with success or attainment. Joy, an inner feeling connected to meaning and purpose in life. Contentment, feeling at ease, as if everything is just fine the way it is. We need to be as granular with our positive emotions as we are with our unpleasant ones. Now, I saw in the chat, it begins with mindfulness. In many ways, it does. It doesn't necessarily have to be, full-blown mindfulness, but it does begin oftentimes with being aware, present, especially when you're having a very strong emotion and your brain is in fight-flight mode. You got to deactivate before you can label and regulate. You got to deactivate before you can label and regulate. How many of you like this quote by the late Thich Nhat Hanh? Touching the present moment, we realize that the present is made of the past and is creating the future. Everybody, get good posture in your seats, please. Oh, it's coming towards the end. We've got about another half hour or so. It's a lot. And so in many ways, I feel like 2.5 hours of talking about feelings is a lot of stuff. It's going to ask you to check your posture. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, close them. If you're not, that's okay too. Just attend to your breath naturally. Maybe put a gentle smile on your face. Observe without judgment. And as we breathe in, we're going to say the word in. And breathe out and say out. And breathe in again. And out. Breathe in and say the word deep. Breathe out and say slow. Again, deep on the inhale. Slow on the exhale. Calm on the inhale. Ease on the exhale. Smile on the inhale. Release on the exhale. One more time. In and out and deep and slow. Calm and ease. Smile and release. In the chat, how are you feeling now? Calm, relaxed, centered, calm, relaxed, happy, settled, peaceful, a little bit of nothingness, grounded. Nice. Better. Did that take 2 hours? Did you have to go drive in your car to take a whole course? No. Simple little phrases and breathing exercises can be very, very helpful to calm our nervous systems, help us to be present, help us to be better focused. Let your food be your medicine, and your medicine be your food. We cannot deny that our nutrition, our sleep, and our physical exercise all contribute to healthy emotion regulation. As a matter of fact, this really is the pre-strategy for healthy regulation. Because if you don't have enough glucose in your brain, you're not going to be able to focus and regulate. If you get poor sleep, you're not going to be able to focus. If you don't get enough movement in or physical activity, you're not going to get those endorphin rushes in your body that help you to kind of that buffer against the stressors of everyday life. How many of you have ever not felt like exercising? Raise your hand. Come on. How many of you have ever been like, oh, I'm so tired. It's been hard work. I don't want it. I deserve to rest. I've worked hard. Yeah. Now pause. How many of you have ever had a problem or been frustrated and then went for a walk or went for a run or went to an aerobics class or took a yoga class, and afterwards you felt a little bit better? Okay, so wait a minute here. What's going on? What's going on here? We know that engaging in physical activity, walking, running, swimming, whatever you do, can help us be better prepared to deal with life's ups and downs. and also deal with those ups and downs. But yet, we don't do it. Isn't that amazing? I feel the same way. So we have to build the habit, right, of putting the nutrients in our body that help us focus, restoring our brains so that we can focus and be more present and regulate, and getting that activity in our body so that we are better able to deal with life's ups and downs. Our thought strategies. My experience is what I agree to attend to. William James is known as the first American psychologist. My experience is what I agree to attend to. So a few things. At least 50% of our well-being has to do with our outlook in life. Our negative self-talk starts early. Let me ask you a question in the chat. How many of you have a phrase that is not helpful that you say to yourself when you mess up? Anyone have say unkind things to themselves? Mark, you're such an idiot. Mine is, a lot of mine is just self-criticism. That was dumb. That was too much. Tone it down. You never do that. Nothing ever works out for me. Que pendeja. I'm not good enough. Again, where did you learn how to be so unkind to yourself? How did you learn to say, I'm not good enough? Parents, peers. Let's think about it. You're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too this, you're too that, you're weird. Yeah, a lot of it is bullying. A lot of it is watching our parents. So many of us have created self-fulfilling prophecies based on the things that other people said to us that we started believing. Does that resonate? Here's what I'm here to tell you. Emotion regulation, or healthy emotion regulation, needs to be taught, practiced, and refined over time. Unfortunately, because we have a negativity bias, unfortunately, when people say meaningful things to us, like my niece, who is this most amazing girl in the world, when she's adopted from Guatemala. And when she was in kindergarten in upstate New York, she got terribly bullied. And a girl once said to her, "You're a different color than your mother. That's disgusting." Now you can imagine with my history how that sat with me. And her mother called me immediately after she got bullied in school. And her mom said to me, "You know, Mark, I can't believe this happened." And I knew something was going to happen, given, Esme's adopted and she's a different color than me, but I didn't think it was going to happen in kindergarten. And I'm getting in my car and I'm running over the kid who said that and the kid's parents. I said, "Well, hold on a minute. Uncle Mark to the rescue." The emotion scientist jumps in his car, drives 3 hours to upstate New York. Now, I share this with you because it was one day when some young kid in kindergarten said to Esme, "You're a different color than your mother. That's disgusting." That took me 10 seconds to say that. Do you know that that started reshaping her brain in that moment? Self-doubt, questioning her skin color, questioning her adoption, school refusal, afraid to make friends. all because of one unkind phrase. And you can imagine how difficult it was to try to help this young girl realize that no one has the right to define your reality for you. No one has the right to change your self-views or to influence them in negative and hurtful ways. But it happened. She was injured and hurt and started rehearsing it and perseverating about it and ruminating about it. And so how much time do we spend in our nation's homes and schools helping children to identify those negative self-talk patterns and reverse them into self-compassion? What do you think? How much time do you think is really dedicated to helping children discern the things they're hearing, question them, and then turn them around to be helpful and healthy? It's not on most people's radar. I don't know. And so here's what happens, is that our brains like shortcuts. We like automatic, habitual reactions. And so if from preschool to elementary to middle to high school, you've been practicing, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm not good enough, that becomes your automatic go-to strategy. You've practiced it your whole life. So now you see why it's so hard to unlearn those mean or unhelpful strategies and then relearn the new ones and practice those and do the rewiring. And these times, that attack is echoed across the nation. No wonder children soon are struggling. Exactly. If all you hear are messages about how you're not good enough, and you get no one helping you fight the gaslighters, what do? Well, you develop low self-esteem, self-hatred. You eat your feelings. You repress your feelings. Does this resonate with people? Your automatic go-to becomes the self-saboteur, not the person who's self-compassionate. So we talked about this. What's the origin of your negative self-talk? You're right. It's also what's not said, the neglect. So I want to share with you 3 forms of self-talk that actually works. The first is positive self-talk. And by the way, I want to differentiate positive self-talk from positive or toxic positivity. Positive self-talk is not saying everything's fine, don't worry about it, it's all good. That's toxic positivity. Positive self-talk is, Mark, take the high road. You can do this, Mark. Mark, take the high road. When I'm having a nervous breakdown, which is often because I'm always overwhelmed, I'm like, Mark, you know this feeling is impermanent. Positive reappraisal. Again, not toxic positivity. Putting a new spin on it. Like when I got into that huge issue with my mother-in-law, instead of saying, I can't stand her, she can't stand me, this is never going to work out, not helpful. Mark, what can you learn from this? What can you take away from this? Can you look at this from another perspective? Oh yeah, actually, Let me look at it through Irene's lens. What's another story I can tell myself? One of my other favorites, psychological distancing. Is this going to matter in a month from now? Really? Like when I get into fights with my partner about stupid stuff, it's like, is this really going to matter in a week? Am I going to care about this in a month? Or jumping in the hot air balloon and looking down and saying, my life is way bigger than this one person who is really trying to make me miserable. I have hundreds of acquaintances and friends that I have a good relationship with. Why am I allowing this one person to have so much power over my well-being? Another form of distancing is building a picture frame around the person you're with who's driving out of your mind and saying, wait a minute, this is a really bad movie, as opposed to absorbing the energy. Or psychologically, doing the parry technique. It's my martial art one. Someone who's really coming at me like this, a lot of negativity, I just watch it go. I'm not taking on that energy. I'm gonna parry that to the side. I'm gonna ask you right now, which of these 3 areas do you think you could start using today? Which one feels like I could try these out over the next week or 2 to improve my self-talk? Pick one. I want to see it. Which one resonates with you as the newer one? I got 1, psychological distance, self-talk, reappraisal, distance, reappraisal, distance, more positive self-talk, more reappraisal. Yeah. Remember, when you're engaging in the self-talk, it's got to be 3rd person. Mark, take the high road. So if it's Dalila, you might say, Dalila, you can get through this. Or Martha, take the high road, Martha. You say your name. It's very helpful. Okay? The best way to help yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. What's the quick response to that quote? The best way to lose yourself, or the best way to help yourself, I should say, is to lose yourself in others. Yeah, Jen, it's a good point. It's not, and then forget about yourself. Firstly, I'm going to ask you all to never worry alone. When experiencing strong emotions, we often retreat. But when we worry alone, it can spiral and make us feel worse because we catastrophize more and lose perspective. It can even make us physically sick. But when we share, not vent, what we're worried about with someone we trust, we can get the social support to problem solve, gain perspective. One of the things that I think is important to know is that we have this tendency to want to vent. But venting keeps on building that negative framing. I can't take it anymore. I mean, you don't know, my partner is driving me out of my mind. Every time we do this, every time we do that. And I call 300 people and I tell them the same freaking thing. And everybody just listens. Not helpful. We think it's helpful, but it's actually reinforced and rehearsed us, and we've practiced more of the negative talk. The person who's listening has got to develop the skill of asking the person to pause and reflect and to engage in some kind of perspective taking or social problem solving. Mark, I hear you. I can imagine driving you out of your mind. What's one thing you can think about to support this in stopping? What's another way you can look at it? So you literally try to get the person to engage in those self-talk strategies as their friend, confidant. You don't want to just let someone vent. I know that people say it's helpful. In the long run, the research shows it is not helpful. Gotta try to build that perspective taking and problem solving in there. Oops. I'm going to ask all of you to be an Uncle Marvin. As we bring our time together to a close, I can't close without asking all of you to be an Uncle Marvin. The mere presence of someone who we see as empathic, compassionate, non-judgmental is a strategy. But yet, only a third of our nation's students believe they have an adult in their environment who is that Uncle Marvin. So I ask you all a simple question. What would it take to get every student across every district to have an Uncle Marvin? What do you think? What would it take? It would be healing for sure. Self-awareness, connection. What would it take? Adults need Uncle Marvins modeled. We have to make mental health a priority. Speaking up about having the importance of it. Thank you. I know it's coming time for us to close, but I thought it would be important for me to share with you just a little bit about Ruler. This is the approach that I have led for the last 25 years. That's now in 4,000 schools across America and in 27 other countries. So Ruler has been translated into Italian, Spanish, and now Chinese. My book has been translated to 25 languages. And pretty much I want you to focus on the aims. Our work in schools is about creating systemic change. It's not a classroom program. It's not a teacher program. It's about leaders, teachers, students, and families, all building a common language, enhancing people's belief systems, why emotions matter, building the skills, building healthier climates, infusing into pedagogy practices and school-wide policies. So it looks like this: adult development first, then student learning, and then also included as out-of-school time and families. We have different tools. The first is called the charter. We got to create schools, in my opinion, that focus more on feelings and less on rules. More on feelings, less on rules. How do you want to feel? Ask people the question. Create learning environments where we have the feelings that people want to have. Building that language, emotional literacy. These are great examples of schools around the globe that have used this tool. From artwork to building, and this is Monterrey, Mexico. They built a whole mood meter football field. We have a tool we call the meta moment to help people be their best selves, their best versions of their selves. So this little boy wants to be kind and hardworking and determined and selfless, which I was super impressed with. Tools to help perspective taking skills and conflict resolution. Wanted to share with you, I live in Connecticut, and I'm proud to say that 50% of the schools in my state have adopted Ruler. And it took a village to get to that place. We work with the Superintendents Association, the state legislators, the Superintendents Union, the Teachers Union, legislators, the Department of Education, getting everybody on the same page. What would that take in your state and your county? Lastly, I just want to share that this work makes a difference. Research that has happened and is ongoing continuously supports that this work changes children's lives and adults and schools themselves. And so let me wrap by asking you all, please give yourself permission to feel. Strive to be the emotion scientist and not the judge. Be an Uncle Marvin. Give yourself permission to fail too. It's okay. You can apologize. You can forgive yourself, ask for forgiveness from others, repair, even get the treatment you might need. Focus on systemic change. Remember, this is life's work. And I just want to say that I believe that together we can create a healthier and more equitable, innovative, and compassionate society. One feeling, one student, one classroom, one teacher, one school, one community at a time. And so I want to remind you that there are resources available to you. There's that mood meter, the How We Feel app. Please join me in trying it out. Remind you can go to my website to learn more about my work, our center's work. You can follow on social media to stay in touch. And obviously, if you want to learn more, if you're a superintendent, you can go to our training this summer. We have training just for superintendents who want to do district-wide work. And on that note, I want to take a few minutes of questions, and then I'm going to let you all have dinner, go home, relax. So firstly, thank you very much. I will send out these slides to Jeremiah to share with you. So I know that some of you want, what gets in the way, the barriers, there's personal barriers like stress and not enough sleep. There's relational barriers, like people putting too much pressure on you. There's the environmental barriers, like you got to work 3 jobs. I know this is a long time to listen to some guy from Connecticut talk about feelings.
I'm just looking here at the chat, Mark, and seeing so many people sharing their gratitude. Sherry says, the presentation filled my bucket. Someone mentioned they've seen you 3 times talk, and it's always valuable, educational. It's been really great. I'm very grateful too for the howwefeel.org. Is the app called How We Feel?
It is.
Excellent. I'm very excited to dig into that.
Thank you.
And see how, all of us can be helpful in sharing our feedback after digging into it to help shape before kind of the real official launch on both Android and iOS.
Yeah.
Very exciting. How long has that work been in development?
So I met the CEO of Pinterest 2 years ago, and we decided to work together, and we spent 2 full years working on this and getting a team of volunteers from Pinterest and a team of people from my center all working together, and then have a nonprofit that's called howwefeel.org, which makes this all available for free in perpetuity.
That is great news. Glad to hear that. Yeah, the chat was lighting up when you mentioned it was free earlier on in the presentation. So have some questions here. Thanks so much for submitting those. Alex, thanks for putting the link in the chat. And then Mark, I'll just jump right in if that's okay. Some of these should be pretty easy. So someone writes in who oversees a summer camp, and they said, when will ruler resources be available for out-of-school programs?
Very soon. So we have been working for 3 years with a grant from the Wallace Foundation to build all those resources. Right now, we work with a summer program and an enrichment program called Horizons National. They're across the United States. We've worked with Boys and Girls Clubs and other places like that, but we will make those available again for outside of school time organizations. We're going to make them available for free. I need to pay my staff though, just so and so we do have to charge for ruler. We try to, it's a break-even model. And
well, we're grateful for it. And as you said, there's, that's part of it. And I think it'd be tough too if all the great educators on here, if all of a sudden it was, you need to do it for free. There'd be a little bit of overwhelm,
Yes.
frustration for some a callback there. Um, what assessment tools are used to show there is improvement? This is an educator that asked that. Is that a assessment tool within the ruler tool?
Which one are you talking about? I'm sorry.
This educator asked what assessment tools are
Uh,
utilized in order to show improvement. So like a pre-post measure.
we have everything you can imagine from, obviously helping people analyze data within their districts or schools. We have a whole teacher wellness assessment tool now on the sources of stress and also the well-being aspects of it that schools can use. It takes 10 minutes and you can do pre-posts on that. And then our center does large experimental designs, where we build in all kinds of assessments from life satisfaction to burnout to development of skill. So it really, we work with the schools that join Ruler to figure out what they're interested in, what they're doing this work for, what's their own logic model, what's their own logic plan,
Right.
Or theory of change, I should say. And so yes, some of them run our websites, others we do, kind of coaching around.
Excellent. Here in the chat, it looks like this is an educator. They're a school counselor. Shout out to school counselors and to America School Counseling Association. What is your advice on advocating to bring Ruler to a school? How can they get buy-in from admin? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think, I'm going to be a little bit of a shameless self-promoter here, but I think, giving them a book to read is very helpful because it takes everything and makes it concrete, and there's all the science in there. It's hard to, people struggle with trying to sell this work to their leaders because they don't necessarily have enough background in the research to talk about it the way someone like I can talk about it, because this is what I do for a living. And so sending them articles, reading a book, asking them to attend the webinar, is important. I think showing the evidence base for me is the absolute most important.
Yeah, especially as administrators and district leaders, when it comes time to allocate funds to that, they have to be able to share, is this going to be effective for the school community? Very good. Great. Just kind of scrolling through here. Looks like Amanda read the book back to back and absolutely loved it.
Appreciate that. Thank
reminding
you.
herself to be an emotion scientist there. Someone had mentioned a slide there towards the end. I think maybe it was after the meta moment tool, and there was a list of things on there of what gets in the way. Are you able to bring that up real quick or to share what was on there? I think it was there just right at the very end.
Yeah. I know I think they're talking about the earlier one, which is, oops. Where'd it go? Hold on. Here it is. Is my screen being shared or no?
Not quite. It was there for a second. And
that's it.
Here we go. Excellent.
There you go.
Can you go forward just one slide? I think it might be on a build. Oh.
What happened here?
It like had the slide, but the text wasn't. There we go. Thank you so much. So Viana, I hope that is helpful for you. There's definitely some things to look at. So I had a question real quick on the meta moment tool. And
Yeah, sure.
It might have this, I don't recall this from the book, but it might have this in Ruler. It looks like the character is maybe a piece of toast, bread, and sorry to insult the designer if that's not what it is. Are you open to sharing a little bit of the reasoning behind that, or is that just, hey,
that's my design, and a lot of my team members don't like it. I like it.
I like it. I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, my theory around it is that, if you don't take the meta moment, you become burnt toast.
Great.
I mean,
I was thinking that, but
yeah. So that's the
great. Well, yeah, there's a lot there, as those in the mental health field and school counselors and such. We use a lot of metaphors, right? And I think that fits in a lot of ways. So that's great. Okay, I'm gonna pull a few others here if that's okay. If you still have the time.
yeah, please.
Okay, great. Um, see, how can we? A few people asking how can we obtain info about Ruler for school districts? Looks like just heading to the website, right?
Yeah, rulerapproach.org.
Rulerapproach.org. Excellent. And then the book is a good way to kind of a callback to what Mark had shared earlier.
Really, yeah, exactly.
Okay. So this person says, my team works with early learning and providers throughout the county. How could we introduce this to early educators and to providers that work with younger kiddos?
So we have Ruler for early childhood. We have a Ruler starts with 3-year-olds. And so we've got a whole model for preschools and, at-home care providers. So again, you can learn all about that on the website.
Great. Great. Looks like this person, shout out to San Ramon. I bought your book to I brought, excuse me. They brought Permission to Feel to schools department leaders and want their entire staff to read it next school year. This person's a school psych, and they have their own takeaways, but the main takeaways that teachers can easily utilize in their day-to-day interactions with students. Just to maybe lob it to you, would that be a lot of the same principles and strategies that you talked about in this particular training today?
Yes, although it would be, tailored more, and longer and deeper.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
which one? You say it again, please. I'm sorry. Which training?
So that in terms of teachers having the main takeaways to utilize in day-to-day interactions with students, was the question. What would be?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said they went to the Ruler training. The Ruler training is a 6-week training that is a couple of hours each week that's live and asynchronous to build the teams and teach you how to implement. Um, I think my book and seminars like this are great for the self, to learn and to practice. I'm a firm believer, though, that to do this work extraordinarily well, you need partnerships with your colleagues and your principal, and so Ruler is a trainer of the trainer model. It's teams come to train, not individuals, and so I think yes, of course, you can become a more emotionally intelligent educator by just reading a book or coming to a presentation like this. But there's a whole curriculum that's like very comprehensive, from across the grade. And we really want you to get those lesson plans for the mood, the lesson plans for the meta moment.
Great. Yes, in your book and even talking here, just the approach for social emotional literacy, it's going to be most effective when it's systemic, not just one-off, not just a la carte, not just, hey, we're having SEL week, this sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's from
it's not fair to the kids either. It's not fair to the kids because then like there's one teacher in one classroom that's like asking them how they feel and then nobody else cares. And so like it creates weird messaging for that child.
Mhm. Yes, here's a great question that came through here on the chat. This is a great one. What are the most common objections and suggested responses to, I would guess, to Ruler integration within a school or school
Yeah.
district?
I mean, the largest challenge is we do this already, which really drives me out of my mind. It means they had a guest speaker that came and did an assembly, or they have some box that they put in their classrooms there's no real training to implement. I would say that's the biggest barrier to this work is that people want to take a quick fix kind of hodgepodge approach, which is not good for healthy child development or teacher wellness. Other barriers are just the resistance, like my job is not to talk about feelings. Well, then what is your job, right? Kids are having feelings all day long. And so let's acknowledge that you're having feelings all day long, they're having feelings all day long, and those matter. So I say that it's that naysayer. It's, I don't want to do this. I've been teaching for 25 years. Now all of a sudden you're going to make me do this. I don't want to do it. And trying to find ways to, that's why Ruler's first year is all about adult development.
Mhm.
So that the adults don't feel like they have to do something new. It's that they're getting privy, they're getting a special education to support them and having just better personal growth.
Very good. Thank you. I feel like you're kind of giving us a playbook and really kind of setting maybe some expectations kind of, from the field, obviously,
Yeah.
working with folks around the world. So it looks like here's an educator, and I imagine there are several others that have the same question regarding students that are in crisis. When we encounter students, maybe they're dysregulated. They're trying to develop an effective calming down routine and would love guidance on how to manage those huge emotions in the moment.
Yeah, I think the first step is not getting huge emotions yourself as the teacher or the counselor, right? We get activated. They're yelling and screaming. You start getting anxious, you start getting angry, you start getting frustrated. And so you got to really monitor your own facial expressions with that child. Like, calm down, not helpful. And then the second is finding out what that child needs. Maybe they just need a drink of water. Maybe they take a walk around the corridor. Maybe they need to just squeeze a ball. Maybe they need to take some deep breaths. But you got to help that child to deactivate. Because if they don't lower their emotional temperature and decrease, the activation in their sympathetic nervous system, you're just not going to be able to reach that child. They're not going to be able to label. That's why when someone's really, they're still like having a meltdown, you don't say, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Right? It doesn't work.
Right.
Just figure out a way to bring the energy down.
Right. Very good. This comes from a policy setter. So it could be on a school board, county, or state assembly, or otherwise, serving their communities. And they're asking around policies that you know of that have been adopted by school boards. Obviously, you don't have to share names, but are there policies that school boards have set, maybe district-wide, regarding Ruler?
Yes. We actually like to work with the school board associations in the state and also at the school, because school boards, approve the funds. They're also either really good role models or really bad role models of healthy emotion regulation, just to let you know. Many of us have seen a video of a school board having a complete meltdown.
Yes.
Not the best thing if the superintendent, and the school board member are having a fist fight.
Yeah, it's quite something when local school board meetings are making national news on a regular basis.
Yeah. And so I think finding ways to educate the school board members in the work that we do is very, very important. Because they also can create the sustainability of the work within a district to make sure that there's, accountability for it. So I'm all for school boards getting involved in the helpful way.
Excellent. So you have time for just one more question, then we can get to those giveaways, if that's all right?
Yeah.
Great. Are you open also to unsharing your screen? Because we're still on the what gets in the way.
Yeah,
excellent. So this is a pretty great one. An educator who asks, how do we handle others who do not allow us permission to feel? They might have a fixed mindset or judgmental, and they don't want to give us space to have emotions. How do we navigate that?
Again, we don't want other people to define our realities for us. And so spend as little time as possible with those people. Remind yourself that no one, when you're an adult, as an adult, it's different than when you're a kid. Kids have to be in context with adults who give them the space to have permission to feel. But as adults, we can give ourselves that permission. And I just think knowing that is very empowering, that I'm going to give myself the permission to be anxious right now. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay. Doesn't mean I have to have a meltdown. Doesn't mean I have to ruminate all night long before I go to bed. I can feel my feelings and have good strategies to regulate them. And I can also feel more than one feeling.
Very good. Super helpful. Is there anything, just to offer you a chance kind of for the final word, is there anything else you feel like would be important for our folks? Just shout out to all of you that are here, especially that are not on Pacific time zone or they're maybe the only one on the school site right now. Just really, really grateful that you've spent, about 3 hours of your time here with us this afternoon. I'll leave you with the final word, Mark, and then you can share our giveaways, and then we'll let you get to that dinner. You're just so excited about
You don't even know. I like to, call in sick. I'm also now very stimulated by this conversation. I'd like to just sit and reflect on it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Well, I just want to end by saying, there's no magic pill, to transform an individual or a school or a community. And that this is hard work, but it's really worth the effort, because when we create communities where people have permission to feel and they strive to be emotion scientists and they have the skills of emotional intelligence, great things happen. Better decision making, better relationships, better learning, better mental health, more creativity, and more achievement. And so I'm here to be with you. I don't like this. I hate training and hoping. I prefer training and dating and getting into, relationships. And
yes,
my hope is that you'll reach out, some of you, if you have the interest, and we can work with you to really embed these principles and into the immune system of your school or community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time,
you.
Dr. Marc Brackett, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
There we go. Have a
Caroline,
great
thank you
dinner.
so much.
All right. Bye-bye now. Check out Dr. Brackett's work at rulerapproach.org. Or go ahead, Mark. Sorry, do you have something?
No, not at all. Just say have a great evening and thank you so much.
Thank you as well. So check out rulerapproach.org, and I've already started following him on social as well. Let's real quick get to just one announcement and then those giveaways. One invites you back 2:30 Pacific time next week, Wednesday, May the 11th. We're going to get a chance, another free event with Sydney Jensen. You may have seen her TED Talk. Over 2.7 million people have seen it. Sydney is from the Georgia area, or in Georgia, and now she's in the Lincoln, Nebraska area, there in the heartland of the U.S. She's a 9th grade English teacher. She gave a talk on compassion fatigue and secondary trauma for teachers, and it really, really sparked quite a bit of conversation there, and it was awesome to see it on like an official TED Talk. She's going to be with us, another free event. So if you are a district administrator or an admin there at your school site, or even a parent, all are invited. It's a free event. You can snap that QR code or head to hearyou.org/events, and Alex can put that in the chat, please. hearyou.org/events to register. It's free. 2:30 next Wednesday. And let me get to some of these giveaways. We had, let me go here. We have 2 books to give away, Permission to Feel, and 2 conference tickets, and that is to the 6th Annual Student Mental Wellness Conference in partnership with the California Department of Education. 6th Annual is going to be in San Diego. We have 2 virtual tickets to give away, and would love to host you. And all of you who are here or attended, you will be able to get announcements and ongoing updates for conference information coming forward. So stay tuned to that inbox. So the first name that we pulled here from Concord, Massachusetts, a book is headed out to you, Sanchita Banerjee. Sanchita Banerjee, an admin out in, let me go back again and make sure I get the city correct. Concord, Mass. Thanks so much for being a part of this. One of these is headed out to you. We have your contact info. Thank you for being here with us. Congratulations. I hope you're one of those who's like, I never win anything. Well, today's the day. You did win something, all right? The next book is going to go out to, shout out to Winnetka, Illinois. Winnetka, this is going out to a school staff, Danielle Kimack. Danielle Kimack, shout out to Illinois, shout out to Winnetka. Hopefully I'm saying this right. Permission to Feel by Dr. Marc Brackett is headed to you. Thanks so much for submitting your feedback. We really, really appreciate it. And now I have 2 tickets to give away to the 6th Annual Student Mental Wellness Conference. The first one is going to go to Redwood City, California, and that is Jocelyn Tejeda. Jocelyn Tejeda, thanks so much. We got a virtual ticket, a virtual pass to the Student Mental Wellness Conference, September 14th and 15th. That's headed out to you. Thank you for being a part of this here with us today. We will get in touch with you. A virtual pass is headed your way. And then finally, the next one, the name we pulled was from San Antonio, Texas. That's awesome. I have family out there. April Avila from NE, I believe the team told us here, it is Northeast Independent School District, NEISD. April Avila, shout out to San Antonio. Student Mental Wellness Conference virtual pass is headed out your way. So be on the lookout. Our team will be in touch with you for that. Again, thank you so much. This recording will be available to you. Again, my name is Jeremiah Aha, Director of Partnerships here. Just have a small role in this great team. Shout out to Alex Theodorides for helping us on the chat. And we're here with wellnesstogether.org, the nonprofit organization out here in Sacramento, California. So thankful for the time you spent with us. Rosa, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you as well. We're going to go ahead and end it. Wishing you all a great evening or a great morning, wherever this finds you. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves as you are taking care of your students, families, and communities. All the best. Bye-bye.